The velvet box felt like a lead weight in my pocket. It was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Instead, I was standing in the ruins of everything we built, holding the one question I would never get to ask. I couldn't get the image out of my head. His hand on the small of her back. It was a pose I knew, a secret language I thought was only ours. And the worst part? It was the sound of her laughter in that photo that finally broke me. Not because it was sad, but because it was the exact same sound she used to save only for me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand the fall, you have to see how high we were. You have to see the dream before the wake-up call. My name is Liam, and for 3 years my universe revolved around Chloe. We met in a rainstorm, a cliché so perfect it felt written. I was leaving my architecture firm, clutching a set of blueprints to my chest, trying to shield them from the downpour. She was standing under the awning of a coffee shop, laughing as she tried to hail a cab, her camera bag getting soaked. Our eyes met. She shrugged, a "what can you do?" gesture, and I found myself walking over, holding the blueprints over her head. "You'll ruin your work," she'd said, her voice warm and laced with amusement. "It's just paper," I'd replied, and it was the first true lie I ever told her. Those blueprints were my soul. But in that moment, they were just a means to an end. The end was standing right in front of me. That was us. Spontaneous, passionate, all in. I was the structure, the foundation. She was the art, the beautiful, unpredictable light that filled the spaces I built. We moved into an apartment together after a year. It was a modest place, but we made it ours. Her photographs covered the walls. Prints of cityscapes at golden hour, candid shots of strangers laughing. My blueprints for a sustainable tiny home were rolled up in a corner. A pipe dream we'd talk about late at night. "Our little house by the lake," she'd say, her head on my chest. "You'll design it and I'll take the pictures for the brochure. It'll be perfect." I believed her. I believed every word. The proposal plan was a year in the making. It wasn't just about buying a ring. It was about building a moment. I'd secretly booked the rooftop of our building, the same spot where we'd had our first real date, eating takeout pizza and talking until the sun came up. I'd strung fairy lights. I had her favorite wine, a ridiculously expensive Pinot Noir we'd only had once. The ring itself was a simple, elegant solitaire. The jeweler told me it was a forever kind of diamond. I pictured it on her finger. I pictured our forever. That morning, she was distant, tapping her phone, a slight furrow in her brow. "Everything okay?" I asked, pulling her close. She forced a smile, a little too quick. "Yeah, just a last-minute client. A gallery opening downtown. They need a photographer. It's a big gig, Liam. Good money." My heart sank, but I smoothed my face over. "That's amazing, Chloe. What time? The opening will be over by 9, right? We can still have our night." I told her I had a special dinner planned, a celebration for a project I just landed. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "It might run late. These things always do. But I'll try to get away as soon as I can." The lie was so smooth, so effortless. I kissed her forehead, the velvet box burning a hole in my mind. "Okay, just text me. I'll be waiting." She left in a whirlwind of perfume and nervous energy. I spent the next few hours setting up the rooftop. Fairy lights, candles in glass jars to protect them from the breeze. The wine chilling in a bucket. I practiced my speech. I checked my pocket 100 times. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I sent her a text. "Thinking of you. How's the opening?" No response. An hour later. "Everything looks beautiful up here. Hope you can see it soon." Silence. That's when the first cold trickle of doubt seeped in. It wasn't like her. Even at her busiest, she'd send a heart. A "thinking of you too." I pushed it down. She was working. This was a big opportunity. I was being clingy. To distract myself, I opened my phone and mindlessly scrolled through social media. And that's when I saw it. A post from a mutual acquaintance, Sarah. "So much incredible art at the Nexus Gallery opening. Great crowd." I tapped on the photo gallery. The first few images were of abstract paintings and sculptures. Then I swiped, and the world stopped. There was Chloe. She was wearing a stunning black dress I'd never seen before, holding a flute of champagne. She was laughing, her head thrown back, that beautiful, unguarded laugh I thought was mine. And next to her was Mark, the gallery owner. He was handsome, polished, smirking at the camera. His hand was placed firmly, possessively, on the small of her back. My breath left my body in a rush. That pose. It was our pose. It was the way I'd guide her through a crowd. The silent signal that said, "I'm here, you're with me." She'd always lean into it, a perfect fit. And now she was leaning into his touch, wearing that dress with that laugh. The timestamp on the photo was 8:14 p.m. She wasn't working. She wasn't taking photos. She was the guest. She was his guest. The rooftop, with its twinkling lights and carefully set table, suddenly looked pathetic. A stage for a play that had been cancelled without my knowledge. The ring in my pocket felt like a joke. I looked at the 2 glasses of wine I'd poured and felt a surge of nausea so violent I had to grip the railing. This was more than a lie about work. This was a different life. A life she was living while I was up here, building a future she clearly didn't want. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, cold calm settled over me. I methodically blew out every candle, unplugged every fairy light. I left the wine and the 2 full glasses on the table, a ghost of a celebration. I walked back into our apartment, the silence screaming at me. I went straight to her desk, my heart a sledgehammer in my chest. I wasn't Liam, the loving boyfriend, anymore. I was an investigator. I was an architect looking for the fatal flaw in the structure. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew the password. It was the date of our first kiss. The irony was a physical pain. I opened it, my fingers trembling. Her email was logged in. I searched Mark, Nexus Gallery, apartment, and there it was. A confirmation email for a new apartment lease. Signed a month ago, a luxury high-rise downtown. The move-in date was in 2 weeks. She wasn't just cheating. She was leaving. She had been planning her exit while I was planning our proposal. Then I saw the flight confirmations. A weekend trip to Napa. Business, she'd told me. A photography workshop. The receipt for the black dress, purchased last week. The pieces clicked into place, forming a picture so ugly, so calculated, it made me dizzy. The front door clicked open. I closed the laptop, my body rigid. "Liam?" Her voice called out, bright and fake. "I'm so sorry. The opening ran so late, and my phone died." She walked into the living room and stopped when she saw me. I was just sitting there in the dark, on our couch, the blue light of my phone illuminating my face. "The rooftop looks beautiful," she said softly, her voice laced with guilt. "I saw the lights from downstairs. I'm so sorry I'm late. Let's go up, we can still." "Who's Mark?" My voice was flat, dead. The air went out of the room. I saw her posture change, from apologetic to defensive in a heartbeat. "Mark? He's the gallery owner. The client from tonight." "Why?" I held up my phone, the photo of them blazing on the screen. "Does he always put his hand on the small of his clients' backs?" Her face paled. "Liam, it's not what it looks like. It was a crowded room, he was just guiding you." I finished for her. "The way I guide you?" I stood up, and I saw her flinch. "You weren't working, Chloe. You were his date. You were wearing a dress I've never seen, laughing like you used to laugh for me. The timestamp is 8:14. You texted me at 7:30 saying you were swamped with shots. You lied." The mask began to crack. The charm evaporated, leaving something harder, colder beneath. "So you're spying on me now? Checking timestamps? I was waiting to propose to you." The words ripped out of me, raw and ragged. I pulled the velvet box from my pocket and threw it on the coffee table between us. It skidded to a halt, a monument to my stupidity. I was on the rooftop, with a ring, ready to ask you to spend your life with me, while you were laughing with another man. She stared at the box, and for a second, I saw a flicker of something, regret, shock. I don't know, but it was gone as quickly as it came. She looked back at me, and her eyes were empty. "Fine. she said, her voice chillingly calm. You want the truth? Fine. Yes. I'm seeing Mark. I have been for 6 months. 6 months. The word was a physical blow. I staggered back. He understands me, she continued, as if explaining a simple math problem. He sees my ambition. With him, life is exciting. It's an adventure. With you, it's just blueprints and plans for a future that feels like a slow, quiet death. Every word was a nail in the coffin of the life I knew. The tiny home by the lake. The shared dreams. It was all a slow, quiet death to her. I signed a lease, she said, gesturing vaguely. I was going to tell you next week. I didn't know about that. She nodded toward the ring. I laughed. A harsh, broken sound. Well, that makes one of us. I picked up the ring box. I didn't look at her again. I walked out of the apartment, out of the life we'd built, and I didn't look back. The confrontation was over, but the war was just beginning. What I did next wasn't about winning her back. It was about reclaiming my soul from the wreckage. And the revenge I took was so quiet, so final, she never saw it coming. Don't miss what happens next, because this is where I stopped being the victim and started building a new foundation. One made of truth. I spent that night at Jake's. I didn't have to explain. I just walked in, put the velvet box on his counter, and he knew. He poured me a whiskey, pushed it towards me, and said, "Tell me what you need." That's what real loyalty looks like. For a week, I was a ghost. I moved my things out of the apartment while Chloe was at Mark's. I took my blueprints, my clothes, my books. I left everything that was ours, everything that smelled like her. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't leave a note. My silence was my weapon. But silence alone isn't justice. Chloe was crafting her narrative. She was telling our friends a soft-launch version of the truth. That we'd grown apart. That it was nobody's fault. She was trying to slip away clean into her new, shiny life with Mark, without the stain of being the villain. I couldn't let that happen. My revenge wasn't violent. It wasn't a public scene. It was a controlled demolition. I created a simple, private photo album online. In it, I placed 3 things. The first was the photo from the gallery opening with Mark's hand on her back, the timestamp clearly visible. The second was a screenshot of the receipt for the engagement ring, dated 3 months prior. The third was a single, stark image. The lease agreement for her new apartment, signed a month ago, her signature clear as day. I didn't write a caption. I didn't call her names. The timeline told the whole story. I was buying a ring for a future with her while she was signing a lease for a future without me. I sent the link to exactly 5 people, our closest mutual friends, the ones whose opinions actually mattered to her. I wrote a single sentence. I thought you should know the truth before you hear her version. Then I blocked Chloe and Mark on everything. I changed my number. I became a fortress. The fallout was instant, and it was more effective than any scream I could have uttered. Our friends were horrified. They saw the calculation, the cold-blooded betrayal. The support system she was counting on to cushion her exit evaporated overnight. She was exposed, not as a woman who fell out of love, but as a liar and a coward. A year passed. I threw myself into my work. The tiny home blueprints? I built them. For myself. I started my own firm. The pain didn't disappear, but it hardened into a kind of strength. I was learning to be Liam again, just Liam, without the we. I heard things through the grapevine from Jake. Chloe's life with Mark wasn't the fairy tale she'd sold her soul for. The glamour faded. He was controlling, jealous. The high-rise apartment felt like a gilded cage. The laughter she'd so freely given him became a currency, not a gift. And then, one rainy afternoon, while packing a box in my new home, I found it, tucked inside an old book. The velvet box. I'd forgotten about it. I sat on the floor, the rain pattering against the windows, and I opened it. The solitaire diamond winked in the low light. The forever diamond. And in that moment, all 3 loops that had haunted me from the beginning closed. The ring. The question I never got to ask. Sitting here now, a year later, I finally understood. It wasn't a question for her. It was a question for me. Will you choose yourself? even when it breaks you? And I did. The ring wasn't a symbol of a failed future anymore. It was a trophy from a war I survived. The photo, his hand on the small of her back. I used to think that pose was a secret language of love. But I was wrong. True love doesn't need a secret language. Speaks openly, for everyone to hear. That pose wasn't love. It was possession, a performance. And I was finally free from needing to understand its meaning. The sound, her laughter, it used to be my favorite sound in the world. That night it was a weapon. But now, a year later, the memory of it has no power over me. I can't even really remember what it sounded like. The echo has finally faded. I closed the box. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt quiet. The storm of her had passed. She was a lesson, a painful, brutal lesson in the architecture of the human heart. Some foundations are built on solid ground. Others are built on sand, and they look beautiful until the tide comes in. My forever didn't look anything like I'd planned. It was quieter. It was mine. And as I placed the ring box back in the cardboard box, ready to be donated, to become someone else's beginning, I realized the most haunting truth of all. The greatest revenge wasn't exposing her lie. It was learning to live again, so fully, so completely, that her betrayal became just a footnote in the story of my life. And if you're listening to this, holding on to your own velvet box of pain, just know, the ending hasn't been written yet, and the next chapter is always yours to build.